Hey guys, Kirk here, and thank you for joining me on a new video on the channel. Now I know a lot of you are going to be wondering where the hell have I been. Over the past couple of months since I released my last video, I've been working on a project in a different engine with a different team, so that's taken up a lot of my work time, and also being a parent and a husband. Priority comes with the family, of course. Many parents out there will understand where I'm coming from. So I've really not had that much time to post, as this is more of a hobby thing for me to do tutorials rather than a lifestyle. But yeah, so as it stands, my project term, if you like, is coming to an end, or my part of the project is coming to an end. And it just frees up a little bit more time for me to actually do some more extra work and to start releasing videos again, as I do actually genuinely miss it. It's nice to provide my knowledge to the masses, if you like, but obviously priorities take over at times. But yeah, so in this particular video, what I want to do is finish off the little bits that I need to for the foliage material that we've been working on recently. As you can see, the foliage is in front of us. We're getting a nice shine from the sunlight, which is your subsurface scattering. We set that up in the material, and we get some nice colours, nice dark greens, which you would expect in this kind of environment of our game. Also, after that, I do want to showcase how we're going to properly transfer our project from the current version, which is, you can hover over this little thing at the top, the name. If you hover over it, it'll tell you engine version and your build date and things like that, and the DirectX 12 SM6 that we're using in this project. But you can see there the version is 5.2.1. As we all know, 5.3.2 is currently the new release, and essentially I want to move our projects over to there, and the reason for that is because normally I do all my foliage and asset placement using your landscape shader, but at the moment there's a new tool out called procedural content generation. I'm sure you've all heard of it. I've not had a chance to dive into it, even though I've looked at the documentation. It looks very powerful. I've not yet had a chance to dive into it. Also, the substrate on the new engine. There's substrate on this engine, but on 5.2, sorry, but with 5.3 it's well updated. It was more of a testing phase on 5.2, I believe, but now it's kind of an official release, I think. Maybe it's still an experimental. I'm not 100% sure, if I'm being honest. But substrate is something I really want to get diving into, and I want to showcase this to you guys so you can see how someone who's used to materials can dive into substrate, because I believe it's like layers. So essentially like Quixel Mixer, where you use layer stacks. Pretty much anything you go onto paint.net or Photoshop, and it's all layers. And the fact that they brought this out in a new, unique way with substrate, where you can actually blend layers horizontally and vertically and all that is sounds very good to me, and I can't wait to get diving in there. So I thought, instead of just doing it in the background, I'm going to showcase how I would open a project in a new engine version. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video, adding a little bit of extra touch to this foliage material, finishing that foliage material off, and then converting to 5.3.2, which is the up-to-date current version. And then in the future I can do tutorials on substrate and PCG. So hopefully the documentation is a lot more better than it was a few months ago when I read up about PCG. But anyway, that's enough of me talking. I'm glad to be back here doing videos again for you guys. I appreciate everyone who's stuck around. I was expecting a few subscribers to go down, but it's not really about the subscribers for me. It's more about getting the knowledge out there, because I know how difficult it is when starting out in a new engine. So yeah, let's get going. So the first thing I want to look at is this foliage. Now the foliage itself, you can see it's quite nice. I'm pressing the keys from the previous engine. It's not the right keys. Okay, so what first I'm going to do is slow my camera down so we can have a good look at this foliage. As you can see, it looks very nice and long. It looks nice and fluffy. The reflection from the sunlight on the subsurface scattering is great. It should carry on past the camera, but it doesn't. That's just a different thing altogether. But the foliage looks really nice. I can't deny that. As you can see, I put a few Quixel assets down just to break up the plains of grass that you would see in this video. Prior to the video, I did have trees down and everything like that, but I thought, let's just take it over to the new engine version, and then I may showcase a bit more advanced material of building a material for trees, if you like. But there's so many tree materials about. I mean, the Quixel ones are great. The foliage ones from Quixel are not that great, but the trees are great. We've got them European beam ones, and there's a couple of different seasons of trees that they've released, and they're probably the best you'll get. Game-wise, probably not more of a cinematic environmental-wise than yes. The Quixel trees are really good for that, but like I say, for game-wise, probably not. But we can reduce the amount of resources them trees take up by converting them to nanite for one thing, and setting things up as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention about the 5.3.2 version of Unreal. There is displacement in that. I did see a little video clip from my mate MR3D, his YouTube channel, and showcased about displacement, and that's something I can't wait to get back into. I do miss that from Unreal Engine 4. I do miss the displacement, because if you see over here, let's speed this camera up. If we had displacement now, this dirt patch here that we created in the landscape shader would look so much better with displacement. It was so much better. But in 5.3.2, the displacement is back. I know how to do it. Obviously, I know how to simply add displacement to our material layers for this material, this landscape material. So adding displacement in is going to be decent. But I'll showcase that in a future video. Okay, so back to the foliage shader. The main thing I want to contemplate with this is the sharp line that we're getting. At the moment, I've got my thing open up here. What's this called? LGT ground foliage. Forgot what this is called. With me. Landscape grass type. Sorry. So LGT is landscape grass type. You can see my end call distance is set at 6,000 centimeters. So you can see there where my end call distance is on that line. You can see that end call distance there, and that end call distance basically signifies saying, hello, the mesh is here, this is your foliage mesh. As you can see, we're getting that thick, well, I won't say thick, just that sharp line where it transitions from no foliage to foliage. And essentially how this works, it works off opacity. So your end call distance, which is set in your landscape grass type, which is here, that's basically saying, listen, your mesh is only going to go so far out from the camera. So once you move that camera and you pass that threshold, it brings in that mesh to keep the environment covered, which is great. But having that line there is horrible. So we can change that by a simple fix in our material. It's very simple and easy. And that's what I want to showcase first. So if we come up here to the foliage material that we've been working on over these past few videos, the way this works is our albedo texture in our foliage, the opacity is in the alpha. So if I open this texture up real quick, you can simply block out red, green and blue, and you can see there this is our opacity mask for our foliage. And that end call distance is literally saying, once you have reached a certain distance in your end call distance, then bang, your mesh is there, and that works off the opacity through this opacity mask. So imagine if it's outside of the end call distance where you can't see it, it's all black, and then when it reaches the end call distance, it's like it just turns a light on, and then it just goes into the mesh. So as you can see there, it just pops in. It's just like a popping in mesh effect, and that's essentially what we want to get rid of. So what we could do is use a function and a couple of nodes here where we can set a gradient to our opacity. So we'll build that up real quick. So our opacity alpha from our albedo is there, and that'll go straight into our opacity mask. So we can make the changes here. Just grab our opacity reroute declaration node. We're going to use a multiply node, so M on the keyboard and left click. Put our opacity into there, and that will go into our opacity mask. And essentially what we're going to power this with is a gradient, and everyone should know a gradient in here is dither. So we've got a dither temporal AA, and essentially this is a group of nodes that calculates the screen position and the temporal sample index, creating a gradient, which is, I'm not sure what's in there. Oh yeah, that's like your pixel offsets. So random noise breakup in 5 steps. So it's essentially saying a random noise, so it's like on, or you can look at it as a brightness factor. And we get a random value there, but we want to leave that as default. It should be default of 1, which is correct there. We want to leave that, and it's essentially increasing the brightness of our opacity. That's essentially what this is doing. Not a big deal, but we're going to add that dither temporal AA in there, put it into the multiply. Now if we apply this now, go back to our scene, you can see it kind of looks like all the grass has gone, where it hasn't. If I lower myself, you can see the grass is still here, but the opacity is set at 0.5 by default. Well, it's not 0.5 by default, but if I just keep going here, the grass is set kind of half opacity. You can see it's like you can see through the foliage at points. You can see it looks like them little heat waves that you would see on a roadway at top of a hill. That's just the opacity is halfway, and we don't want that. But if we look at the material, if you remember right at the start of the material, I set this up used with instant static meshes. We did enable this right at the start, and we enabled used with nanite as well. And essentially what this means is we can use a node called per instance fade amount. And this per instance fade amount is going to tell our dither temporal AA that at one point our opacity is 1, and at the other point our opacity is 0. And if you plug this into the alpha threshold of this dither temporal AA, it's essentially saying increase the brightness per instance. So the more I go over that call distance range, it increases the brightness until it moves closer into the camera, which then creates a fading in effect. Just like this auto save, and I'll plug that in straight into that alpha threshold there. And if we do that, pardon me, you can see this random here is a default value of 1. We may change that, let's see how it looks. And that's pretty much it there. So we're going to hit apply there and go back to our scene. You can see our opacity is back. If I go up now, you can see at the edge where we're not getting that popping effect now. Now it may look the same. What's our range set at? 6,000, that's fine. We can use a value in here if we want, like this is a random value, default value of 1. Set that to 0, hit apply, come back to our scene. You can see that is much better in that transition. So just to showcase what it's like without this little bit of logic, hit apply, go back to it. You can see that popping in effects there on our foliage where it goes straight from 0 to 1. And now with this bit of a setup, straight into the opacity mask, hit apply, save, back to our world, and you can see now how it's no longer, as you can see now, it is no longer popping in, and it's more of a fade. So if we hit play it, start walking about. Yesterday when I started Unreal Engine up for the first time in about a month and a half, I did increase the walk speed of my mannequin. You could do that in the blueprint. I could show you how to do things like that if you want, guys. I'm pretty sure I showcased doing that, reducing the walk speed. But if I just keep moving up here, you can see the grass over there near that dirt patch and the rocks. Oh, it's just some bits are still popping in. Maybe if I change this value to a 0.5, it just creates a randomness in it. So the randomness is whether it's popping or not, essentially the randomness of the fade, if you like. So we've done that. We'll just use the camera. We don't need that mannequin. But yeah, look at that. 0.5 seems to be a nice value. It's not popping in really much. I'm getting a few little bits that are popping in, but as it stands there, quite happy with that. So yeah, that is all I really wanted to do with the foliage material. I mean, we could throw this into a function real quick. Just let this save. And then we'll get on with the transferring of these over. So my foliage material is here. I'll just create the function here. So I'm going to right click in here, go to material, material function. This could be mf underscore opacity fade. I'll go underscore fade. Do that. And then what I need to do is just to copy these. So I'm just going to click on them, left control and C, make a copy, and I'll open my material function. As you can see, we're getting a missing functions output. Don't worry about that, as we all know that will end in a minute. So left control and V, and we'll get our result, and that error has gone. We can close that stats up. We can do this. We'll do this, and what we're going to do is create a function input. So we'll just type, right click and type input. If I can smell it, but you can tell I just arose from my bed. So this is a vector 3. We don't want a vector 3. We want a, or do we want a vector 3? Let's just put opacity input. Like so. We'll try the vector. I'll go for a, yeah, we'll leave it a vector 3. No, we'll go to a scalar parameter. We'll try that first, see how it works. Well, if we drag that over here, we can tell from the material actually. So at the minute opacity, so that is just a vector 1. It might work. If it's not going to work, guys, we can simply just change it to a vector 3 as it stands there. And click on the output result. Well, anywhere inside, I'm going to expose to library. That means we can use this throughout the library in our engine. So we'll save that opacity fade, cross that off, go back to the material, jump over here, drag our MF opacity fade into here, and it just cleans it up a little bit. Yeah, I can put that in a scalar parameter and then straight into the opacity mask, and that should still work. So we'll hit apply, we'll just check it out. As you can see there, it's still working nicely. You can see that fading in there, the foliage. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Oh, don't know why I said it. Let's clean this up a little bit. And then we've got our little function there for our opacity fade amount. So we'll hit apply and save. And we can close that off. We can increase the range of this. We'll go to 25,000. That's a general default for range. Go back to our scene, and this grass will just grow all the way out there, and you can see there's a possibility. 25,000, yeah, it seems fine. That, yeah, we don't want it too close to the camera, because there will become times in your video game where your player is like at the top of a hill here. There will be trees and other assets in there once, you know, if your game's complete, if you like. At the minute it's bare bones, but at that range, that's fine. I'm happy with that. Okay, so now we've finished our foliage material off. What I want to do now is to showcase my workflow when changing over to a newer engine. It's very simple, very simple. once you get the hang of it, but this is probably the correct way. I remember watching a video on Unreal Engine's YouTube, it's going back maybe 9-10 years, where they showcase how to open it proper, and I've always done that ever since, and it's always worked for me. So what you want to do is to make sure your project is saved. As you can see, it's all saved, so that's pretty good. And what I'll do now, I'll meet you in the Epic launcher for Unreal Engine. Okay guys, so now we're in the Epic Games launcher for Unreal Engine. As you can see here at the top, I've got 5.2.1, which is our current engine version. At the top here, I've got 5.3.2 as well, already pre-installed, which I put on yesterday to install. If you've not got 5.3.2, just simply click this little plus icon for engine versions, and it will create a new box. It's grayed out at the moment until you hit the install, but if you hit this little drop down menu here, you can choose the engine version. Now I won't have 5.3.2 version here. You can see it goes all the way back to right to the beginning of 4.0.2. So this is essentially saying that Epic are still supporting these game versions. Whether they are or not 100%, I could not tell you. Whether that's accurate or not, but I believe that's the engine versions they still support. Obviously, like 4.2.7 and 5.2 and 5.3 are getting a priority of support, but I believe that even 4.0.2 still get a little bit of support. But the priority is there. But you would set your version to 5.3.2 and then click on install. Or you could choose this, and essentially what you would need to do is when you click on install, you'll get to a point where you can click on options. And once your options come alive, you can see here I've got core component, starter component, templates, and engine source. The rest of them I've turned off because you don't need them. If you have Linux enabled, which I think is by default, that's 15 gig of engine space that is taking up. So uncheck that. If you're not working with Linux, you're not working with Android or iOS, and you're just here to solely make video games. I mean, if you're making video games for smartphones, then yes, leave Android and iOS on. But, you know, Linux, you won't need that if you're using Windows. If you're using Linux, leave it on, be my guest, but this is how I approach it. And then you would hit apply. I think you could choose these options before you install it as well, I'm pretty sure, but that's how I do it. Okay, so now just click your way and just wait for it to install. It can take time, a long time, sorry, depending on your computer specs. But yeah, so the way we're going to do this now, open this up in a new engine, is just simply click launch. You can see I've got my two here. I've got my Build Worlds main, and this is my Build World mains testing. So I test all my shaders and materials and assets that I bring in to the project, which I use them for videos. Don't want to do it all in one project, so I've separated out and done a Build Worlds main testing. This gets updated if I make a change like this 5.3. I'll send this 5.3 5.2 over to 5.3.2, and then I'll probably change this 5.2 to testing and change that to 5.3 and then get rid of the testing 5.2. That's essentially how I would do it. I've got other projects here that are blurred out for obvious reasons, but essentially what we're going to do is click launch on our 5.3.2. If you just finished installing this engine, you can see I'm a Manchester United fan. Didn't do too well last night, but nevertheless. But anyway, you can see this will open up pretty quick for me because I've already opened this up prior. Essentially, once you've opened the actual engine up, it may want to do pre-requests and all this kind of nonsense. But just let it do and let it build. Yeah. Right, okay, so how are we going to do this now? You can see that I've got my Build Worlds V2 main testing here and my Build Worlds V2 main. The Build Worlds V2 main is what we have just been using to finish up our foliage material, and this is the project I'm going to open. So if you're not seeing your project here, you can simply use the browse button and navigate to on your hard drive to where your project is, and go into your project, into the first file, and you'll see the little blue Unreal Engine icon. Just double click that and your project should appear here alongside all your others. And essentially all we've got to do, guys, is highlight the engine we want to upgrade, the project we want to upgrade, and simply click open. Now this will come up with something here. It'll say this project is made with a different version of Unreal Engine. Open it with this version of the editor may prevent it opening in the original editor and may lose data. So essentially what it's saying is there is if you open this in 5.3.2, it's going to convert your project to 5.3.2. That means your project may no longer open in 5.2. Now there will be times, even if you've opened it in a new version of Unreal Engine, where you want to go back to the original, which is 5.2. So it's highly advised. Trust me, I've been in that situation before, guys. Please make that copy. Open the copy, because once you've opened this and you don't make a copy, you can click on more options here and then skip conversion. Yeah, if you skip conversion, you will lose that 5.2 version of your project, and it's all gone. You'll never get it back. And if something happens in 5.3 and all your shaders mess up because of different coding and different things in the new version of Unreal Engine, you will break your project, and then you've lost your project as a whole. So please, I must state, do create that copy. Don't do what I did a few years ago, where you lost everything and had to start from scratch. And that project was a client's project, and I lost everything. It was months of work, and essentially I lost a contract with him, but it doesn't matter. It's a long time ago. But do just make the copy, guys. Please just make that copy. It will help in the future. So I'm going to let you know now as well, once you open a copy, this will take a while. I've got quite a substantially good machine. It cost me a lot of money, and this will still take me a while to do. This project, last time I checked, is around 15 to 16 gig in size for BWV2. So essentially, it'll take me a while. If you haven't got a massively performant machine, then by gosh, just give it a chance. Once you click that open a copy button, it will stop. It will look like nothing is happening, and it may take 10 to 15 minutes before Unreal Engine even starts saying, oh look, we're converting. Yeah, it may take that long. Just click open a copy, go make a brew or a cup of coffee, go and get something to eat, go and watch something on TV, I don't know. Just leave it doing its thing, click open a copy. If it crashes your computer, that's out of my control. I highly doubt it will, but it looks like it's doing nothing. It looks like it's crashed, and you may be sat there thinking, Alt-Tab, Alt-Control and Delete, let's close this down. Don't do it, just leave it, let it do its thing. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to click open a copy, and I shall see you on the other side, guys. Okay guys, now we are back. We are in the new engine version. If I go to the top again, you can see version 5.3.2. Now I know a lot of you are thinking, wow, that took a long time. It took a long time for me as well. And you can see we are now back open and our project is empty. Now this is for the guys, well, the guys and girls, people in this day and age, you've got to say that. But at this point now, you're probably wondering, well, where is everything? So what's happened is, because we've opened a new engine version, our landscape streaming proxies have now been closed, which is fine. You should see, if you've been following along, that your world partition icon is still here. I purposely closed it. It was there for me. If it's there for you, you could just follow this in a moment, but I want to showcase this for people who have not been able to, who have not had the world partition open. You just go to window at the top here, click on that, go to world partition and then world partition editor, click that and it shall appear. And essentially what we want to do is load it all in again. So we're just going to drag over everything. Got all my landscape streaming proxies in the middle here in this big square on the outside is actually the ocean template that we created right at the start of the project, and we want to load it all in. And you can see here we've got this little toggle the visibility for our scale manis, and these are the mannequins that we placed at the beginning of the project which calculate our scale. Now I've highlighted it all, I'm just going to right click and load region from selection. So load it all in and let all this load. It could take a while, but it won't. Just let it all load the stuff in. And there we go. We are now back to where we started in engine version 5.2. And now we are open in 5.3. I'm just going to go up and make sure my foliage has stayed the same, which it seems to have done. As you can see, them rocks and Quixel assets, they're popping in like they were with the foliage. Now, the function that we created, which is BWV2, oh, it's not in my favorites anymore. So what we do, we go right click on there, add to favorites. I'm actually going to change the colour, set colour. I'll go for a reddish colour like that. That's more pink than red. And then if we can close that down and go to here, we've got our BWV2 folder. We'll change the size of the icon, the thumbnail size. Click on settings here in your content browser. Then go to thumbnail size, and I prefer small. Like that. It's just a personal preference, you don't have to do that. We go on foliage, and you can see our MF opacity fade. If you find the master material for your particular assets, you can add that function in there somewhere. I've not been into the Quixel assets master material, so I'm not 100% sure. Sorry about that noise, I was stretching. So I'm not 100% sure on where I would add that into the master material. Maybe I'll show that in a future video, or maybe I will create a asset master material myself where I could easily add that in. It would obviously work with your opacity with assets. I'm not sure you'll get an opacity mask. Depends on the domain of your of the material. You could probably use opacity. But yeah, so our project is now in 5.3.2. What I'm going to do now, guys, is spend a little time on working out like your PCG, your substrate, and any other plugins that need to be added into the engine. But yeah, that seems to be it. We're now in engine version 5.3.2. A lot more doors have opened up for us, and I'm hoping to apply some assets using PCG, as Epic are screaming about that modification right now. So we'll give it a try. But as it goes for this video, guys, I hope you found it informative. I hope you're happy to see me back. Well, I don't want to say back because I still have work to do, so I'm not entirely sure I can keep up with my 2 weekly video routine, but it is highly likely at the stage I'm at now in life that I can keep releasing videos on the 2 weekly as promised. So yeah, I shall see you guys in the next video. I'm not sure what we'll be looking at yet. It's going to be a big surprise, but hopefully I can start adding some trees in here, the rocks, but I want to do it through PCG. So I shall see you in the next video, guys. This is Kirk signing out. Thank you.